so excited to introduce today's guest because I've read her books and have been completely changed because of them. And our guest today is Pam Grout. You're probably going to know her from her New York Times best-selling books. She's a best-selling author of 20 books. But the one book that I did read, that I imagine some of you have as well, is E Squared and the Course in Miracles Experiment. You guys, this book changed my life. Pam is a freelance writer with publications in Scientific American Exploration, Outside, Men's Journal, and more. And she is the creator of the TV series Going Rogue. I want to talk to her about that. And runs two popular blogs. And her current focus is the 222 Foundation, which is dedicated to her daughter, Tasman, who has guided her from the non-physical since 2018. I also want to talk to her about that because I've also lost a son, and I think her daughter is really supporting her in her mission. And so we're going to talk a little bit about communicating with those who have maybe passed on, as well as this whole idea of really intending and seeing something or claiming of what you want to see and then watching it come into your life. E Squared shares with you your power. So you definitely want to read that book if you haven't already. And I'm going to have to order the Course of Miracles experiment because I actually am not. And so I'm going to talk to her all about those concepts. We're going to get vulnerable today. Welcome, Pam Grout.
Welcome to the Danette May Show, where you'll receive profound breakthroughs, courage to break old patterns, and live into your soul's purpose. Each week, I will bring you epic guests and live coaching to remind you of your power. You have the ability to achieve extraordinary things, and the time to start is now.
Pam, I am so excited to chat with you because your book, E Squared, really was the catalyst for me to understand my power. You really created a book that was like a bridge between this idea of this metaphysical world and way of like calling things towards you and bridging it to everyday humans of like, oh, this is how you do it. And I've actually used your teachings in the book and helped a lot of people through those teachings. And so I want to kind of go quite vulnerable right away because I've lost my son and I feel like he really helps me a lot in the mission I'm on. And I had no clue that you have a foundation, the 222 Foundation, and how you really utilize the passing of your daughter on this next evolution that you're on. And I want to ask you, because people have come to me a lot about losing someone they love or what they call losing someone they love. And they want to know how I feel so much peace around it and how I'm using that energy in my mission. And so can you share how you're using her energy in your mission?
Well, first of all, I'm so sorry to hear that. I didn't realize, that that was your situation. But one thing that does happen, you really have to look at the world in a much bigger way. I mean, when you lose somebody that you love like that, you no longer are quite as attached to material things and the world as we're taught. So it really does open you up to a whole new way of looking at the world. And I think more than anything, that's what we need. In fact, the mission of the foundation, if were reading about that, it really is to change the consciousness of the world. And I feel like Taz is working with me on that mission. And again, we had a thing about 222. If you've read each bridge, you know about that. So that's why I called it the 222 Foundation. And every year on February 22nd, 222, we do award, some money to a person or a project that is working to change the consciousness of the world. And I think that's just super important. That we've got to change the consciousness before we can change anything else. I mean, consciousness is where it all comes from, whether you're interested in manifesting or whether you're interested in, becoming closer to the dude, God, whatever you want to call it. All of it, starts from our consciousness. So anyway, that's really what's happened. And she has, oh my goodness, given me so many signs that she's still with me. Every single first of the month, I get a head hug, which is kind of a long story that I could explain. But yes, I'm very much connected to her. And I feel like it opens a door to, this wisdom from the other side, as I'm sure you feel like with your son. So, yeah.
And I think it's important for people to hear this from someone who can understand because it changed my relationship with this idea of what I was taught around death and living, because I have living children, and I've also have him, and I feel like it's the similar energy, and almost like I can access him easier than my living children,
Right.
just because that energy's constantly with you if you're willing to open and become conscious of it, like you're mentioning. And so I just want to give people that hope that these loved ones are here, and just because their physical form, and that there's an energy so much beyond. And that was such a gift for me to be able to have this experience in this life.
Right. Well, that's the thing. When you're in the physical body, you're trapped to time and space. And as we all
Exactly.
know, we're connected to something so much bigger. And that's really where the magic and the excitement is. So when you have someone you love very dearly on the other side, you're more motivated to hook into that bigger part of who you are. So yes, from that regard, it can be seen as a gift for sure.
What made you write E Squared? Where did you get this inspiration to write this book?
Well, I don't know if you read the follow-up book. I talked a little bit about it. I originally wrote it 10 years before it came out. It was called God Doesn't Have Bad Hair Days. Yeah, it was called God Doesn't Have Bad Hair Days. And the only difference was it had 10 experiments as opposed to the 9 experiments that E squared. And I did change up one of the experiments, but basically it was the same book. It came out and everything, but it went out of print. In fact, it was funny because my editor said, this book is just like the movie The Secret. Why do you think, The Secret went so crazy and your book didn't? And what I believe, the timing. I mean, I believe so much in divine timing and there's a bigger force going. So there was that going on. Also, they hired a fundamentalist Christian publicist. So they were marketing it because of the name God. You know what I mean? So when I then sold it to Hay House 7 years later, or whatever it was, because it went out of print, I got the rights back. And I went on, and this is a story I tell in eCubed. I went on, and I'm not going to worry about it, even though I know this book is so great. I went on and I wrote 3 books for National Geographic. I just, kept working on becoming more joyful, having my channels more open, my frequency higher. And then when E squared came out, it just took off like the lightning bolt. I mean, it's been translated to 40 languages. In fact, the 10-year anniversary is coming up this year, and we are releasing a new edition of it. It's sort of the same, but it has a manifesting scavenger hunt in it. And I wrote a new foreword to it. So it's hard to believe that it's been 10 years, but actually I wrote the thing almost 20 years ago. So anyway,
Wow. So when it published with Hay House as E Squared, how long did it take to hit number one, like to hit that I think it was national bestseller, right?
it was
How long did
number
it take?
one
Did
on
it go fast or did it take a bit?
it was number one on the New York Times bestselling list. And interestingly enough, Hay House didn't, I don't know that they even expected that to happen. Once there started being all this buzz about it on the internet, people were like posting videos of their experiments and people were really chatting it up on social media. And then Hay House decided to print quite a few more copies, but it came out in January, official release date. And it was on the New York Times bestseller list by the summer. And I mean, it was number one. I mean, every author, the ultimate goal is to be number one on the New York Times bestseller list. So it took a little while. They said, oh, you're an overnight sensation. It's like, no, this was my 16th book. But anyway, it was just a beautiful thing. And I was very blessed. But that isn't even the part is the best part about it is that I get letters every day, emails, I should say, and sometimes letters as well. People send me things, just the love that I get from people and knowing that, I've helped, open people's minds to this other possibility, this new consciousness as we're talking about, with the Do Foundation and everything. That is just so rewarding to hear that. And so many of the emails that I get, they start with some version of, you are never going to believe this, because some amazing thing happened to them. And of course, I definitely believe it because, I know this to be true. So anyway, it's been a lot of fun, and the community that's sprung up from this has been really the best part of it. But yes, meeting that goal to be number one on the New York Times bestseller list was really good. And,
Did you have an intention when you went to go to Hay House and make it E squared? Was there an intention within you that was like, I want this to be New York Times, or I want this to reach X amount of people? Was there that intention laid with that decision?
there was that intention. In fact, one of the things I did do on New Year's Eve, I was visiting my sister in Savannah, Georgia, and we went out to Tybee Island, which is, we're on the ocean. And I took a big stick and I wrote in the sand, E squared will be an international bestseller. And then I let the waves come in and, take it out into the ocean. Something like I made vision boards for. I feel so blessed because I've always been able to write. I mean, I've been able to make a career doing what I love to do, which is to write. And so, my books were doing quite well. I mean, I wasn't getting wealthy, but I was able to continue writing, continue doing what I love to do. And then this book did take off like a firecracker. And, then it's easy to sell the next book. I mean, it just really kind of changes your life when you get to that level. And again, with the 40 languages, and I mean, I've been flown to the Philippines, Finland, Peru, Japan, where 1,600 people met me with, wearing my face on their head. So, you know what I mean? It's just like, it kind of changed my life in some ways.
Do you like writing? Do you like writing more or meeting people and speaking?
Oh,
Or do you like them both?
I'm not a big speaker. I always say that everything I have to say, you can read in my book and you can buy that for 15. I swear, guys, people pay lots of money. People do like to see the person in person. I really feel more comfortable. Look, my gift, my divine plan or whatever really is more about writing because that's how I express myself the best. So yes, I enjoy that a whole lot more. In fact, I've always been a writer. I mean, since the time I was young and started writing books in second grade. So I guess the thing that I was just naive enough to believe that I could continue to do this thing that I loved and make a living doing it. And sure enough, I have been able to travel all over the world because I'm also a travel writer. And so I've just had a really blessed life by following my bliss. Who did say that? Joseph Campbell or whoever, I really have always
But I think this
followed.
is important for people
Yeah.
to see that you have followed your bliss. You set intentions, you've done the action, and now you're living a life that you would say feels very aligned for your soul's call. You're living into your soul's expression of what people are saying. And so I think it's important for people to see that you did set an intention, that you did move into action, and you are following your bliss. I mean, come on, that's like the amazing formula.
Yeah, for sure.
Your life is the E squared formula, which is really
Right.
kind of cool.
Well, my intention more than, becoming a best-selling author is really just to be able to write and do what I love to do.
Yeah.
That is more my intention. In fact, I have 4 main intentions that I say, and these might surprise people, but it's peace of mind, surety of purpose, clear, unmistakable guidance, and unceasing joy. And the guidance part's really important because I feel like all of them are guided. There is, I'm a student of A Course in Miracles, and of course, it talks about the Holy Spirit, but we're all guided and we all have a purpose. But unfortunately, we get so distracted with there's so many distractions out there that people don't even hear the voice within them. And one of the things about writing that's always so great for me is that I can hook into that voice and I can hook into that higher purpose. So anyway, I'm just like I said, I'm so blessed that
Yeah.
do
So
this.
when you're writing, you're basically writing from that sense of quiet, that sense of inner knowing, that stillness, it sounds like. That's really powerful.
Well, I was telling my possibility posse just yesterday that, I write in my journal as well. And, I'll be writing in cursive, just kind of writing my thoughts, whatever. And sometimes my writing will slow down and I'll start printing. And I sort of know, I mean, it's not like I'm consciously thinking, oh, I'm going to print this, but it's like, okay, something's coming in that I need to pay some attention to. So it's kind of an interesting sort of dynamic that happens. I mean, I do my writing on a word processor, or my computer, whatever, but nonetheless, I still do also write in my journal and, I keep tabs on things, make lists, whatever. So anyway, that's just kind of a fun thing that does happen when that voice, that higher purpose thing comes into me.
Yeah, well, let me ask you because I didn't know you had a TV series called Going Rogue. I actually haven't seen it. So tell me what your intention was in creating that TV series and what, obviously, I'm sure it's about raising the consciousness, but why is it called Going Rogue and what does that mean?
Well,
It hasn't
I
been
have
produced yet.
I've written the pilot for it and I have created it's what they call the Bible and that's characters, the setting, and that sort of thing. And it's
Ooh.
actually set in an eco village that's called Milagro Springs. Well, Milagro, of course, means miracle in Spanish. So there's a hot springs there, and people come to this eco village to take classes, like to do yoga classes, to sit in the hot springs. It's a natural hot springs. And so anyway, it's called Milagro Springs. All kinds of miracles do happen there, but it's also about living more consciously on the planet. So it is an eco village. These people live off the grid. So that's kind of why it's calling going rogue. I mean, in my opinion, most of what we're taught, we're taught a certain way to live a life. And it doesn't even bring us happiness. I think, this whole consumerism, materialistic culture that we're trained to want. I mean, from the time we're born, we're trained to want that. I don't think it brings true joy. It doesn't bring true openness to this voice that wants to work through us. So it has those components, a little bit of anti-materialism. I know people that are into manifesting maybe don't want to hear that, but the things I want to manifest are love and joy and peace. And, those kind of
Yes.
things are really much more
Yes.
important to me than any material kind of thing. And again, Cass being on the other side, and she was always pretty anti-materialist too. I'm not anti anything. I mean, I don't even like to use the word anti, but I am attracted to things that are more about community, love, openness. That's what I'm attracted to. And that's what
That's
I,
really
put my
cool.
attention on.
Have you thought of having this come out as a book? As this script or this series as a book?
Well, I suppose. I mean, at this point, I've just written the pilot and it's in the format of, there's a script
Yeah,
where,
it's a
the
little different.
characters
Yeah.
say things and all that. So it's possible it could be made into a book, like a fiction book or something, because it is a fiction piece. It's not
Yeah,
really
that would be
based
so
on,
incredible. Like a
yeah.
storyline. It's interesting. I'm sensing this ability with you with Bliss because now here we are talking about this TV series as if it's already a TV series. Like when I read that, I was like, oh, I got to pull this up on Netflix or I got to pull this up on Apple Plus. And now we're talking about it as if it exists because it does, because you wrote it and your intention is for it to be a series. To me, I'm like, woo, you're quite powerful in your ability to say, oh, I wrote the pilot. It hasn't come out yet, but you said yet. And here we are talking about, and I'm like, oh, I want to read this. Can I read this? Can I watch this? And so it's interesting because now I'm like, it's going to happen. Someone's going to listen, or you are probably turning it in, and it's going to happen. So I
Yeah.
have to watch and know that I
Right.
talked with you.
And, it doesn't exist in the format of a streaming service or on a screen, but it does exist because that's the thing about manifesting. Once we put it in our consciousness and once we put our attention on it, then material begins to form around the consciousness, but it always starts with the consciousness. And to me, it already exists once that intention is made, once that action, I guess the action would be that I snapped in and wrote the pilot. So once you start doing that, you get compelled to do that. Like you don't say, oh, I'm going to make myself do this. You actually, once you have that intention and once you kind of hook up to this higher thing, you feel compelled. It literally tells you, go this way, go that way, write this, do this. And I feel like that is just the best place to be in because when I'm trying to make things up, it comes from my little pea brain and the ego can tell you all kinds of things. So once you get past overriding, that ego, those messages that the ego tries to tell us about, oh, that's too hard, or you can't do that, or that's never been done before. So you have to hook into that higher part of yourself that knows that you can do it and that tells you exactly what to do. I mean, literally guidance. I think that's one thing people are so surprised about how much guidance we actually have that is available to us. But because we are so distracted and because we are paying attention to those voices in our head, I call it the asshat in 1 plus, the asshat in the head. But anyway, there's just such a higher voice that we can listen to. And that's where, the real magic and miracles happen.
I feel that too. I always feel like everything we are intending with this consciousness within us is always presenting itself, and are we just opening our eyes to it versus being distracted by other things and saying it hasn't come?
because I sense everything is showing itself and maybe we just aren't seeing it or we're just not grabbing it because it's already here. Because we are over here, right? Like, let's say it's just come in front of you, but you're like talking to this person and you didn't see it. It's like right there for you to grab a hold of an experience. So you just said a quotable quote. Honestly, I hope my team grabs it when you were talking about this because you were like, yeah, it is here because I intended it. It came from my consciousness and I did action. And so, yes, it is here. And that is so profound. It may not sound profound to you because I think this is your natural genius of really showing people this part of themselves. But for other people that maybe don't have this fully embedded yet, it was really profound what you just said so easily. So I appreciate that.
Oh, well, thank you. Thing I believe so strongly is that we are all one and we are connected. Really, the manifestation process is just bringing that thing you're already connected to closer to you to where you can see it. Because truly, we are all connected. We're connected to everything and everyone. We don't know it, most of us. But, once you really get how much you're connected, so basically, what you manifest is what you're putting your attention upon of all the connections that are out there. I mean, if you don't like what you're seeing showing up in your screen, where do you change it? One of the things I've often said is that you don't look in the mirror and see your mascara's smudge and try to fix it on the mirror. You have to fix it on your face. So that is just such a powerful thing that we have power within ourselves. And if we don't like what we're seeing out there, we got to change what's in here. So,
Wow, so good. Okay, I'm going to ask you a final question.
okay.
Thank you. This has been such a gift for me to connect with you and hopefully in real time, maybe through a Hay House reunion or something, I get
Yeah.
to meet you and give you a hug. But let's imagine you're standing in front of millions of people and you have one thing you get to share with them. What would that message be?
It is always that so much love and joy is trying to come to you. It is your natural state. It is the density of the universe. And if you really knew that, you would have no fear whatsoever. But most people, because of cultural constructs, have learned a different way of being. So if I could really change everyone's consciousness, it would just get that they would know how deeply they're loved, how profoundly they're guided. So I guess that it would be something to that effect. That was maybe long
Wow.
wanted
You
to
are
hear.
deeply loved. You are deeply guided. You are known. And I love that message. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the effort you put out through your writing. Thank you for doing that and this foundation. And I just want to tell your daughter, thank you so much for the life she lived and how she communicates now. So just giving her a big love heart from me and just saying thank you to her as well because she's working through you and we're so appreciative. So
Oh,
thank
and
you
to
for
your
all that
son
you
as well.
do. Yeah, for sure. Thank you for your time today. And yeah, thank you guys for tuning into the podcast. And if you love this episode or you have a question, like just tag us and ask on social and we'll see it. And maybe we can respond if it's something that we can easily respond to. But we're all in this together. Pam is definitely truly someone of the heart. And I imagine loves hearing how she has inspired you. And I feel the same way. We're all just doing this together and we're doing the best we can. So sending all our love. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode today.
Thank you.